this, and so I'm going to ask y'all to have a lot of patience with me, but this is my left arm and my right arm right here. So he'll guide us through it. So if y'all would, I've asked Senator Walker to lead us in our opening prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not Mike 8, if you want to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not 6, sorry.
6.
Got double vision or something. Pray with me, please, this morning. Heavenly Father, thank you for your love and your grace and your mercy. Thank you for another day and an opportunity to serve the people of Georgia and to do your will, Father. Please give us wisdom and discernment as we look at the education budget for this state. We realize that how critical that is to our future, Lord, and we want to make the right decisions and decisions that are pleasing to you. Lead, guide, and direct us. In your name we pray, amen.
Thank you, sir. First off is our Commissioner Amy Jacobs, Department of Early Care and Learning, DECAL. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I think she's going to be working off of line 127.1.
Well, good morning, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be with you bright and early. I thought it was a little bit dangerous to cross the street in the dark, but that's okay. We made it. I will start with our one budget item in amended 23, and then I also have a decal overview if you'd like to hear a little bit about that, and then a little bit more about pre-K.
Thank you.
If that's what I'll plan to do, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman. So we are on page 2. The item is 127.1. So there's no budgetary change there. It's just language that was added by the House. And it says to utilize existing funds to expand the summer transition program. We do anticipate that we will have a surplus of funds just because enrollment is down in pre-K, and so the House inserted this language to call out the significance and importance of this expansion. For those of you who don't know, our summer transition program is part of our Georgia pre-K program, but obviously it's in the summer. It's a 6-week program in the summer.
Would you mind slowing down a little bit?
Of course. Okay, I'm sorry. I speak very fast. Okay. So our summer transition program is a part of our Georgia pre-K program. It is a 6-week program in the summer, and we have 2 different models. One is a rising kindergarten program, which is for those students who have attended Georgia pre-K, maybe have not attended Georgia pre-K, or have been identified by their teachers as needing a little bit more support to be ready for kindergarten. So they get 6 more weeks of intensive pre-K type support before they enter kindergarten. And then we also have a rising pre-K program. This is for children who are Spanish speakers. We know that they come into pre-K behind their peers. They make huge gains during pre-K, but this gives them a little bit more support before they enter our Georgia pre-K program. So this is specifically for our Spanish-speaking students. This is a smaller program than Georgia pre-K, but we have made a huge increase as a result of COVID, and we recognize the learning loss of kids that have not been in Georgia pre-K program or even in other early learning programs. And so from 2019 to 2022, there was a 74% increase in the number of children in classes that we're able to serve. And so this language just recognizes that expansion. And we do intend to continue to expand that in FY23. If you don't have any questions on that, I will move on to the decal overview.
I think we're fine. If you just keep going, we'll say the questions in.
Okay, sure. So I apologize to some of you that heard my presentation to the literacy discussion yesterday. Some of this is duplicate, but I want to make sure I provide an overview of decal. We do provide Georgia's pre-K program, which I will talk about a little bit more in a few more slides, but I wanted you to understand the breadth and depth of what we do at decal. We also license over 4,500 child care programs throughout the state. They're either child care centers or child care family learning homes to ensure that they are healthy and safe for young children that attend those programs. We also administer CAPS, which is our Child Care and Parent Services program. This is the state's child care subsidy program, which assists low-income working families with the cost of child care. We also have Quality Rated, which is our rating system for child care programs who choose to go above and beyond that basic level of health and safety. Nutrition services, we have 2 USDA programs that we administer. The Child and Adult Food Care Program, which provides reimbursement for meals for low-income families and child care programs, and also a summer food program that we called Happy Helpings, which we work with nonprofits and community partners and reimburse them for meals that they provide to low-income students during the summer when school is out and they don't have access to food. Between these 2 programs, we're able to serve 70 to 80 million meals every year to these students. We also house the Head Start State Collaboration Office. We also have a team of inclusion and behavior support specialists, and they work with child care teachers to ensure that all children, no matter their ability level, are included in the classroom. And then, of course, there are always children with challenging behaviors, and so we work with those teachers in the classroom to make sure that they can adjust to that. We also have a team of infant and toddler program specialists that work directly with infant and toddler teachers. We coordinate the efforts around infant early childhood mental health, especially in the way of awareness of what we mean by mental health for young children, especially infants and toddlers, trying to increase the workforce for these types of services, and then identify financing for those services. And we also support the workforce that are in child care programs and our Georgia Pre-K program, and we have several other quality initiatives and grants around language and literacy, Project Little, and our quality rated language and literacy endorsement. This is just a pie chart of our budget by fund source. You'll see that we receive 50.7% of our budget is from the federal government. 42.7% is from the lottery, so that all goes to Georgia's pre-K program. And then we receive 6.5% in state general funds for a total of $938 million. This shows our budget by program. We have 4 programs that I'm sure you're familiar with in the budget: child care services, nutrition, pre-K, and quality initiatives. And this shows our original appropriation for FY23 and the amended governor's recommendation. There was no change from the original to the amended. Now I'm going to move on to Georgia's pre-K program. So a little bit about Georgia's pre-K program. It is a voluntary preschool program for 4-year-olds funded through appropriations, but by the Georgia Lottery for Education. This was started back in 1992 as a pilot program with 750 children, and now we serve 73,000 this year. We're actually celebrating 30 years of Georgia Pre-K this year, and we've served over 1.8 million over those 30 years. It is available in 159 counties, so any county in Georgia, there is at least one Georgia Pre-K class, and currently we serve about 54% of eligible 4-year-olds. This is down from about 60% of 4-year-olds that we've served on a regular basis, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. So Georgia Pre-K is grounded in these foundational components: parent choice. Any type of preschool we definitely value parent choice. Parents make decisions on preschool for many different reasons. It may be location, it may be the type of program, where it's a private or a public, it may be access to transportation, and it definitely may be cost. We also have a public-private partnership in Georgia Pre-K and have from the beginning. We have about half of our classes are in public schools and half of our classes are in private child care, and that's really important for the success of our program. First, it honors that parent choice, but it also allows us to serve now 73,000 children. We will not be able to serve this many children in either one or the other, so it's really important that we have that public-private partnership. High quality is obviously very important when we talk about early learning, and we have research to prove that the quality of Georgia Pre-K is high. And what's really good about it and makes me happy is that whether you're in a program in North Georgia or South Georgia or somewhere in between, the quality is the same. And it's universal. And in that we mean it is available to any 4-year-old no matter their income level. So the eligibility for a child is really very simple. You must be 4 years old by September 1st of the school year, and you must be a Georgia resident. That's all we need to make sure you're eligible as a child. Now, for a grantee to be eligible, this is a grant program, so we provide grant funds to pre-K classrooms. They apply to us to become a pre-K grantee. It must be a local school system, a licensed child care center, or some other federal or state regulated program, like a Head Start program, a military child care, or a university child care. And of course, they must meet health and safety and quality standards for us to fund a classroom for them. For our teachers, we do have credential requirements for teachers, regardless of where our classrooms are, whether it's in private childcare or public schools. Pre-K classrooms must have a lead teacher and an assistant teacher, and they must meet certain credential requirements. And we do have 22 students in a classroom with this lead and assistant teacher. So for the lead teacher credential, we do require a minimum of a bachelor's degree in early childhood, and 69% of our teachers do have a teacher certification. For our assistant teacher, we require a minimum of a child development associate or a Georgia paraprofessional certification. You'll also see that the average salary for a lead teacher is around $43,000 in Georgia pre-K, and for assistant teacher, it's around $18,000. We are seeing significant challenges with teacher recruitment and retention. We hear the same from K-12. We hear the same from our other state partners and colleagues. We haven't had this challenge before in Georgia pre-K. It's a pretty popular program, and pre-K teachers are really special if you ever get to talk to them or meet with them. But we're having an issue with recruitment and retention. It is certainly down this year, and it's definitely could impact the quality of our program and the access to our program. And so we're watching that very closely. We do a lot of research on Georgia pre-K because there's been a huge investment by you all and the governor over the years for Georgia pre-K. And what we know is that Georgia pre-K provides a strong foundation that supports children's growth and development. From our longitudinal study where we follow a group of pre-K students from pre-K to fourth grade, it shows us that these students that attend Georgia pre-K make significant gains on all areas of learning above and beyond what would be expected if they had not attended Georgia pre-K. Of course, pre-K is a foundational piece of the language and literacy skills for reading as we prepare these kids for kindergarten. And we also did a separate study where we looked at third grade, end of grade tests, and those children who attended Georgia pre-K did significantly better than those who did not. This map shows you our current enrollment. So our current enrollment is 73,462. Again, that's about 54% of 4-year-olds. Like I mentioned, usually we're around 80,000 4-year-olds, but the pandemic has absolutely increased a decline in our enrollment, which I'll show you the historical trend in just a moment. But you'll see this is blue, so this is our saturation rate. So obviously the darker blue shows a higher saturation rate, meaning more 4-year-olds in that county are served in Georgia pre-K. Approximately a third of our counties serve 70% or more of their 4-year-olds in Georgia pre-K.
Can I ask you right there, because this is something you and I have talked about several times, and as you said, it's a voluntary program. Okay, how do we get the word out to parents for the children to sign up? I mean, is it just school system telling them, or how do we do that?
Well, we do a lot of PR at the state level, but it's absolutely important to do it at the community level, where it's the school system who's recruiting those students, or a private child care. Usually, if you're in private child care, you've been there since an infant, so you've got a Georgia pre-K class waiting for you when you're 4 years old. Or, of course, you're always in contact with your public school, and so they do a lot of recruitment of 4-year-olds as well.
So do you have any idea how many 4-year-olds are in the big pool available versus the 73,000?
We have an estimate, yes. So we believe that we're serving 54% of those. So the estimate of 4-year-olds is, I can't do the math in my head, but it's over 100,000 in the state. So we think we're serving about 54% of those based on the best data that we have. But we've never served 100% of 4-year-olds.
I know that. So walk back through the numbers again. So we got roughly 100,000 kids out there.
That's an estimate, yes.
Okay, and we got
73,000 right now we're serving. Yes,
okay,
sir.
so we're serving 73%. So there's about 25,000, 28,000 we're not serving.
We're serving 54%. So that is 46% that Georgia pre-K is not serving. That does not mean that they are not in some type of program. Again, this goes back to parent choice, and preschool is definitely driven by parent choice. They choose programs for different reasons. They could be in Georgia pre-K, they could be at home, they could be in a church program that we don't regulate, they could be in a half-day program because that's what their parents choose, that works for their family, that we don't regulate and we don't know, so we don't have a count of them. So I don't want you to be alarmed that there are 46% of 4-year-olds that are just lost, they could very well be in a program. We did a study several years ago, pre-pandemic, so I hesitate to say it, but I'll tell you what we know is 86% of 4-year-olds are in some type of program that we regulate. So Georgia Pre-K or a private child care that is not funded by Georgia Pre-K, so those parents are more than likely paying out of pocket for tuition, and that's their choice. So there are more children that are served in other programs, and that's okay, but this is what we know about Georgia Pre-K.
Senator Dixon.
She actually answered my question. That's because I noticed, around Metro Atlanta, it was lighter numbers. In my home county, Gwinnett, within a 10-minute drive, I've got over a half dozen options that might not be Georgia Pre-K, but maybe a
That's
church
right.
or some other program that children are attending.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We do have a waiting list of 2,700. The waiting list varies from county to county. Our top 5 are Fulton, Henry, Gwinnett, Fayette, Bibb, and Carroll. But you'll look at those numbers, and they're not huge as you think of a waiting list by county, but it's different in every county. The landscape is different with access to a public school or a private child care. 20% of counties have a waiting list of 20 kids or greater, and then we know that 69% of counties have a waiting list of less than 10. And there are some counties that don't have a waiting list at all, that we're serving all of the kids in those counties.
And that's based upon the school system providing that list to y'all.
It's either the school system or the private child care. So as a pre-K grantee, you provide to us, someone could get on your wait list.
Right.
You may be full at 22, and then a parent can sign up for your wait list, and they report that information to us.
Senator Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You kind of answered my question. If there is a waiting list, why are these children not being served?
Because it's very difficult to always match up our open slots with where the children are. So just for an example, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but in Fulton County, we may have a waiting list of, how much did I say? 378. But those parents may be choosing a different, there may be an opening in a public school, but they may not want that public school.
So
they may
we-
want ABC Child Care Center. So it's not always going to match up. The slot's not always going to match up where the parent might choose or where the children are in the state. Because you have to understand, we're funding at a statewide level. So we've got to look at the need at the statewide level as well. So it's not always going to match up. It's not like a public school where you're zoned for a certain school. You have parental choice on where you send your child.
Senator Art.
Mr. Chairman, and good to have you with us. So that's 79 counties, if I followed your quick math, that have slots open. No, that have waiting lists. 79 counties. Some have 10 kids, some have 20, or
Yes, it varies. It varies by a few. 81 counties have no wait list, but there are other counties that
81
do
have no wait list,
That's
and
correct.
79,
If
roughly speaking,
yes, if that's
do have a
159 minus
wait list.
81, yes.
And this was originally, isn't it true, set up when the program was established. It was touted as universal voluntary pre-K.
Yes.
So the universal is,
Well, you're right. When most people think universal, they think everyone has access to Georgia Pre-K, and I think that's a goal that we've never reached. When we talk about universal, we talk about it being open to everyone no matter of income. But like I said yesterday, we're to the point where slots are not going to help us. We don't have the physical capacity to open more classrooms. And until we can have that physical capacity to open more classrooms where these kids are, we're not going to be able to serve more kids.
and follow up if I could, Mr. Chair, is there a disincentive to public schools to take in the program and house it?
I don't believe so, no. So, we have a formula, and we fund public schools and private schools based on their teacher credentials, their assistant teacher, and then operating. So I don't think that there's, I've never heard that from a public school, that there's an issue with that.
Well, they have had things pushed down to them from the state, costs that the state used to
So
cover.
they apply to
I'm not
us.
talking about pre-K, I'm talking
Right.
about,
So this
in
is
that
their
case,
choice.
that's bus drivers.
This is their choice
Thank you,
to
Mr.
apply
Chair.
to us for a pre-K grant.
We have a lot of other
Thank you.
presenters. Let's
Okay.
just one more question. I'm going to skip you. Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks so much for being with us, Commissioner Jacobs. So I don't know if you recall, but a number of years ago, we had a conversation about the facilities issue, and I filed legislation that would have allowed some of the facilities DOE funding to be utilized for school systems that don't currently have the physical capacity but would like to actually have pre-K programs. I see, you mentioned yesterday in our Ed and Higher Ed meeting about this issue again, and of course today, wondering what, that bill did not pass. What do you have suggestions for us about how we could increase this facilities funding?
I think that's definitely an issue, and I think that's something that we've never explored, but we need to start talking about that if we truly want to serve more 4-year-olds. But I think you can't just think about how we do it for public schools. You could definitely add it to the capital outlay formula for DOE. I'm getting out of my lane here, but you could. But we have to think about private child care programs, because again, I go back to that public-private partnership is critical, and I don't know how you do that for public businesses. But you can't do one without the other, because then we're going to lose they're going to get upset, and they're going to be at a disadvantage, and we really value, and I don't know, and it's above my level of knowledge. I hope I can talk to someone smarter than me on how we could do that, how we can incentivize private childcare to either expand or improve upon their space so that they are able to serve more pre-K classes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd be delighted to talk to both of you and with the commissioner about this issue, because it's one that I started working on 8 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Would you like me to continue?
No, ma'am, our time
You're out
is
of town,
situation. Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Thank you. It's great information. Anybody who has any other questions, please contact her. I'm sure she'll be willing to give you her office number and her cell number.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great information. We continually know, so many times we've been talking about this, about the pre-K and the K, and that's why it's such a hot topic. And I hate to keep dwelling on it, but, we don't start them off educated, they're not going to end up educated. Very simple. Executive Secretary Matt Arthur from the Georgia Professional Standards Commission. Line 177.1. And we will try to, I've had a couple of our senators reach out and say they got other obligations, so we will try to kind of not move fast, but move on schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee. I'm going to start with the budget first, and of course you see no changes until you get to 177.1, and the House moved $3.5 million from GTA into our budget. This $3.5 million will allow us to replace a 25-year-old legacy system that supports everything we do in certification. And to give you an idea, we have every single person who's certified in the state of Georgia from 1940 on. Right now, we have over 320,000 live certificates. We have, last year alone, we completed 102,000. And so our archives are huge. And we have been doing this with an antiquated system that when we bring in new people, the training itself takes forever. And this would completely redo that system. We've been working on it for a couple of years. How did we get that number? We sent out RFIs to 4 or 5 companies, and we sent those figures to OPB, and this is what they came back with as a good number for us to work with. So this is going to take more time than just now through June, of course. So this money's going to have to be flexible, and maybe that was the reason why it was put in GTA's budget to begin with, to roll over. We're not real choosy where it is. We just know it has to be rolled over, and we know for the type of information that we retain, from not just on what it takes to become certified in the state of Georgia, but our ethics division also. We need security. We need better security than what we have right now. And this would do that. So that is the only change in our budget. This fall, there were 13,000 new hires in the state of Georgia. Out of the 13,000, 10,000 were completely new to the state of Georgia. And that is well above where we've been. Last year was similar. The last 2 years have been around 13,000. And so the state of Georgia is growing. The population is growing. That means schools are growing. And of course, it's early childhood is where we're seeing the biggest growth right now, because you understand what our colleges are experiencing. They're experiencing a downturn, but those numbers are coming back early on. 87% of our teachers are still teaching in the state of Georgia after the first 3 years. You hear a lot of things about 50% leave, not in the state of Georgia. If they're educated in the state of Georgia, they're still here after 5 years. So they're staying with us.
Are you still teaching after 5 years?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They're still teaching. That 50% you hear is a national number. It's a national number. It's not the state number. And we keep records of all that. And so we have, how many education preparation programs are there in the state? There's over 1,000 education programs in the state that students can choose from to go into the teaching field. And they go from everywhere, from elementary, ag, all the way up. So.
Senator Walker? No, wait, Senator Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we'd see, if we looked at the GTAE budget, we'd see a negative 3.5 there. So it's a transfer. Is this the total cost of the system upgrade? 3.5, what you think it might be?
What we think it
based on the RFIs. And if you're not able to complete it before the fiscal year ends, are you able to retain the funds, or are you going to send it back to GTA, or how's that going to work?
We're working with OPB on that. I don't have an answer. I've asked the question. I don't have an answer.
I mean, it almost seems like this ought to be in the 24 budget.
It was under it came in under the Technology Empowerment Fund, and GTA is what it was under. And so it was moved. And
how close are you ready to start spending money?
We won't the RFPs won't even go out till June.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to look at pushing that.
Thank you. Good point.
Thank you.
Senator Dozal.
That's a good catch by Chairman Walker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. I just was wondering, the RFIs that you have received, what kind of maintenance contracts have you seen as far as ongoing costs to maintain the system, or a system that y'all could be looking at?
Right now, it's varying from company, but we have seen them as high as $1 million a year, and then we have seen it where there's very little maintenance. So we've seen it from the bottom to the top. But we do have one company that we know the maintenance looks like it'd be $1 million a year, and we can't afford that. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. President William Caldwell from Georgia Military College. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not going to ask you what all those medals mean because it takes too long.
Just means I've been around a long time. Mr. Chairman, sir, thank you for this opportunity for us to talk.
295.1.
So I'll be on page 37 for you all. Sir, as you know, Georgia Military College is broken into two parts. I'll talk first about the junior college portion. It's a school where we pride ourselves on not only having an exceptional academic program, but a very much of a leadership institute where we produce future leaders for the state of Georgia. We know that about 70% of our graduates that come out of our junior college program move on and continue with their education in a Regents college or university in the state too. So we're very much partnered with the Regents in ensuring that the quality of the young man or woman that comes out is ready and prepared to take on the rigor of the colleges and universities in Georgia. Sir, as you know, we don't have a funding line for MRR, so this ad that was put in on 295.1 for us to provide safe and functional facilities is very much welcomed. We're glad it's there. We'll use it and ensure that all projects are executed at least before the end of June, put into action.
Okay, sir.
All right, sir. I'll then turn to page 38, sir. I'll take you to 296.1. Sir, 296.1 is our preparatory school. That's a K through 12 program co-located on our main campus in Milledgeville with the military junior college there. The first line there, 296.1, is a programmatic increase that deals with the state health benefit plan premium. And 296.2, we appreciate the add that was made there. It was not in the initial budget from what the governor had said was going to be given to all the K through 12 schools in Georgia. So we appreciate that add being put there for our schools, sir.
And I think members of the committee will see that increase in state health benefit on about everybody that's here today. So it just kind of be aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman, that's really it for us. There's not a lot, but I'm prepared to answer any questions.
Anybody got any
have.
questions? I see none. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks
Mr.
for your
Chairman,
time.
thank you very much for your time.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your time. Mr. Buster Evans, next up. Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. My wife appreciates you.
And we appreciate your wife, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Buster Evans, Director of Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. And I'll try to help you make up a little bit of time. Basically, with this item, you see only $115,000 that comes directly to the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. Certainly, that is not all the money that comes to us. The majority of the money that comes to the Teachers Retirement System comes back to us through our employers, including K-12 education that we serve, higher education, technical college system of Georgia, county extension agents, and public libraries. We have, so this is actually a number that represents a COLA of several merged systems, and there are only 10 of these people left that this COLA is going to. And so it's been a diminishing number. When I started this job about 6 years ago, I think the number was about 250,000. So it's down to about to 115,000, and will continue to diminish as these people decease from our rolls. So just a little bit of information in terms of an update very, very quickly. Our total membership, we do serve over 500,000 active retirees and inactive members. That membership number, consistent with what Mr. Arthur was telling you, is growing. We have more people coming in than we actually do retiring. We have about 7,000 new retirees a year and well over 12,000 new people coming to our rolls. Our assets are currently at over $92 billion. That's been somewhat of a volatile ride during the last 16, 18 months. We've been as high as $105 billion and been as low as $85 billion during this last period of time. And our annual benefits paid to our beneficiaries are $5.5 billion. Last bit of just information that I'll share with you. Monday, you honored a gentleman who had his 100th birthday. At the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia, we have roughly 70 of our retiree beneficiaries who are over the age of 100, and but 7 of them are men. So you can draw your own conclusions, but our female population continues to outlive our male population in the retirement system. And Mr. Chairman, unless you or members of the committee have any questions, that'll complete my report.
We have none. Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you.
Next up is Executive Director Jim Potman from the Employees Retirement System of Georgia. Good to see you, Jim. Jim's always a man of few words.
It's good to see you too, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
166.1 is where we're at.
Yeah, page 21. And actually, I'm going to call your attention to page 23, which contains the one item which was a change from the governor's recommendation. There's a little bit of background. Last year, the Board of Trustees for ERS made a change to our funding policy wherein we established a pre-funding formula for COLAs for ERS with the support of the General Assembly and the administration. Some significant funding was granted to the system and promised in future years. This formula provides a variable COLA each year, so we plug in certain variables, and it provides a number that the system can afford to pay in that particular year. In year one, we were able to pay a 1.5% COLA that was effective July 1 of 2022. We are projecting that the COLA for 7/1/23, while I don't have the final number, it will be significantly lower than the 1.5% that we paid last year. So the House has proposed a bit of a supplement to what the formula will provide in the form of a one-time payment. The $14.5 million that you see in line 166.2 would fully fund a one-time payment of approximately an average of $265 or so for each of our retirees who are eligible for a COLA in the ERS.
So Jim, backtrack just a second. So the formula as it is right now, what you're projecting is going to be a 1.5%?
No, that's what we did last year. It's going to be lower than 1.5 this year.
Okay. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you. Thank you. I guess this is demonstrating. You just said the COLA last year from the change in the formula was 1.5 for those that are eligible for
Correct.
the COLA.
That's right.
We just should remind ourselves that we stopped COLA for people after what year?
Anybody who was hired after July 1 of 2009 and subsequently retired is not eligible to receive a COLA from our board.
Right. That's one thing we've done with our state retiree system, which is a problem in the eyes of many of us. And now this formula, the legislature removed from the I believe it was 10 or 11 years ago it made that change, and then now this change which we just made, we're not getting anywhere near the 3% that was in the laws of Georgia guaranteed. We've had these conversations, and you know very well you could finish my sentence because you've worked in the system. But when we wonder about I mean, it's a real live issue. No COLA for people that that accepted very low state wages with the promise of a COLA at the end. Now this adjustment has 1.5 last year, and it's not going to be that much in the next year that you're projecting.
That's correct.
So we're really falling short. I would think on, and this is 14.5 million has been added in this budget by the House to the governor's proposal, and that would be a $265 one-time payment to those who are still eligible to get any COLA at all.
That's correct.
So I just highlight we seem to be going down the wrong path on, being an attractive job opportunity for people looking for some security in their later years. And I know you don't make this all up, and I know you don't take it personally, but I would love to see us work on getting back to a 3%.
Senator Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Just wanted to drill down on a couple other things. So as of 2009, retirees are not eligible for a COLA.
Anybody who was hired after 2009. So those who were in the system prior to that time are the ones who are receiving these.
So those who were, so none of the folks hired after 2009 are eligible for any sort of COLA.
Correct.
Those that are still eligible, we did not pay any COLAs for how many years? Was it like 10, 12?
So the last COLA we paid before this past year was in 2009.
Right, so it was 2009, and then we did a little bit.
Time, we did a few one-time payments, 4 or 5 of them.
So for 13 years, we did no COLA, and we did a few intervening one-time bonuses.
Correct.
What percentage of a COLA is a $265 one-time payment?
Well, they're a little bit apples to oranges because a COLA obviously is a permanent increase versus a one-time payment.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, you're right.
It's a
Yeah, thank you.
transitory thing, so it's hard to compare, but this is significantly lower than what a 3% COLA would look like.
Is it like 0.5? I mean, do you know? I'm just curious.
I can do it in terms of the dollar commitment. So $14.5 million is enough to fund a $265 one-time payment. In order to fund a 3% COLA at full, it costs about $400 million over the lifetime of the plan.
So it's very small.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you just hit you just hit the stop sign. Any other questions? Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Next on the agenda is President Lynn Riley, who I guess will kind of hobble up here. She said she did that to herself, right, Lynn?
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Chairman. Yes, just a misstep, but thank you for your
Yeah.
kind consideration.
318.1.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Our first item is 318.1 under Commission Administration. The governor's budget proposal reflects a reduction of $1.6 million. This was funds that were appropriated by the General Assembly in last session to provide in FY 2023 our ability to develop and implement a number of programs. For example, increasing the HOPE award factor rate to a minimum of 90%, adding the 18th HOPE career grant for law enforcement and criminal justice, implementing a HOPE high school equivalency examination grant, implementing the Georgia College completion grant, implementing the medical examiner loan repayment program, a law enforcement officer service cancelable loan, and the mental health professionals service cancelable loan program. In the governor's veto message in May of 2022, the agency was instructed to disregard the budget language and utilize existing funds to implement programs. Due to a lack of resources, we did delay progress on other initiatives we had currently underway in 2022 and redirected our resources to ensure the rollout of the HOPE factor rate adjustments, the 18th HOPE career grant, the high school equivalency program, and the Georgia College completion grant. We did pause our efforts on the other three programs accordingly. In their actions under 318.2, the House has restored 25% of that original appropriation for a total of $405,716. This would allow the Commission to proceed in the fourth quarter of the current fiscal year in securing the resources necessary to sustain the programs that we did implement in FY 2023 to date and proceed with programs that were delayed due to the resource limitations. Our next item is 319.1, dual enrollment. The House proposes a reduction of $4 million to the dual enrollment appropriation for the rest of fiscal year 23. This is based on utilization and projections that would indicate that those $4 million would not be needed to be expended in this current fiscal year. Our next item is 327.1. You'll find that on page 45 of your tracking sheet. The House has proposed a reduction of the $405,715 that they have added to Commission administration for the continuation of the program development that were paused earlier in the year. And this would just reduce the low-interest loan principal dollars available in the current fiscal appropriation. However, the Student Finance Authority does have sufficient carryover reserves to accommodate this proposal. Our next item is 332.1 under service cancelable loans. In the disregard language from the governor last year, he instructed the agency to disregard the appropriations for the medical examiner and law enforcement programs, a total of $1.7 million, consisting of $240,000 for medical examiner and $1.440 million for the law enforcement program, pursuant to House Bill 1319 that was presented in 2022 but did not pass. And our final item in the amended fiscal year 23 is line 333.1 under tuition equalization grants. The House has proposed a reduction of $3.5 million in the fiscal year 2023 appropriation, and utilizing reserves that the Student Finance Authority has available to carry over into FY 2024 to contemplate an increase in the tuition equalization grant award in 2024 from $900 to $950. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time before you this morning. I'd be happy to answer questions.
So just one quick question. I know Senator Parent also wants to ask. There's $4 million left in the reserve. It's not $4 million left, 3.5. It's $4 million left in the reserve.
There's at least $4 million in the reserve, so the 3.5 being utilized to carry forward in a subsequent fiscal year would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Senator Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much, So we have lower dual enrollment than was originally projected, hence the $4 million return.
Yes, Senator, that is correct.
Why do we have lower enrollment than projected?
I would defer that to members of the higher institutions that are providing this enrollment. We track on a monthly basis, and sometimes even more frequently, the number of invoices that are sent to us from our participating institutions. We can't give you an answer on why the enrollment is declining in these cases, because we merely receive those invoices and pay them out.
I see. Well, then I'll wait for a later speaker to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Chancellor?
Yes, sir.
You up?
Good morning. I'm going to give you some more time back too, Mr. I don't even have my magic pen this morning, Mr. Chairman. So thank you all, and I'm going to be speaking.
I apologize. I jumped over someone for you, but I was looking at you, and that's what made me do it. So
You want me to go back to my
no,
seat?
sir. I want you to stay right where you are.
Begin the remarks.
I would never tell the former governor of Georgia to move out of that seat.
I'd be happy to. I didn't think I was in the on deck circle, but anyway. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to be really simple. Our request is significant but simple this year. You see the $105 million in the governor's recommendation for our electronic medical records at our Augusta Hospital. This is part of our medical education, and it's critical that we afford our medical students the opportunity to operate in a modern clinical environment. And that's what that is for. The in page 286.1, 288.1 is just taking away $92,500 that was disregarded by the governor last year. And then as well on the 288.2, the 2.6, we were moving along with the University of Georgia and MOU with the Classic Center. But that was also disregarded as well and removed there both from the governor and the House. You see the 5.7 was added in the House for Middle Georgia Aviation. That was not part of our request, but we would fully support that in tracking 288.3. I think there's a real opportunity here for the state of Georgia to have a premier aviation. We know we got Gulfstream, we've got Lockheed, we've got our military installations, Delta, and it's a huge need for aviation graduates as well. And then the next line on 291.1 was just a correction to Georgia Tech credit hours that were put in incorrectly last year of 2.757 in that way. And then the last one of the 291.2 was transferring from B units to the teaching unit at Fort Valley State on the land grant match. So that was that's really the simple there. I will answer any questions, Mr. Chairman. I think, again, I mentioned during my budget presentation initially over some of the inflationary factors that are occurring in the formula, and we'd love to talk with you all at some later time about those and explaining those.
Senator Hort.
Thank you for being with us. I had a question on Medical College of Georgia hospitals and clinics, and this electronic medical record system, $105 million appropriation. Does that have anything to do with the newspaper? The Atlanta newspaper has reported that there's a negotiation going on to take over. Puts this several, as the newspaper said, several of the hospital and clinics in and around Augusta being negotiated for a takeover by another hospital chain.
Yes, takeover probably is not the operative word.
Probably
We're
not.
entering a partnership agreement with Wellstar in order to manage the clinical aspect of the medical education at Augusta, both from Talmadge. They're putting almost $800 million capital commitment in there and assuming over $300 million of debt in that way. And so it will be, it's called really a sort of a merger. AUHS, which is Augusta University Health System, Wellstar will come in place of that in that way. So they are on Epic, and part of that negotiation meant that, and we would need this regardless of whether we consummate this relationship or not, but the medical record issue is part of the financial challenge that we've had at the hospital regarding a revenue cycle, inability to bill correctly, to schedule correctly, and to get those things done. So it will be in conjunction with that. It'll be utilized that way because they're on the same system. In fact, if this partnership does consummate, we're actually saving money. It's about $115 million that we were going to be putting in, 105 here and 10 from the university. If we had to do it ourselves, the bill we're told will be about $188 million. So much of the application would be done by Wellstar, and they'd be contributing to that as well.
So Wellstar that'd be an expansion of its operation or its footprint. I mean, it's all within our state.
Yes, all within our state. In fact, with a telemedicine aspect, we're hopeful it would be good for medical, not only medical education, but also good for health all over the state.
Well, I hope they don't walk away from some of those hospitals after they take them over. You know, they have a little track record over here in Atlanta.
I understand, and I think our folks have done a pretty good job with some stopgap measures on the negotiations and the affiliation agreement. We'd be happy to share with you.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Chancellor.
thank you.
Senator Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, just thank you for your remarks. I just wanted to confirm and maybe help people understand, since I come from the medical world, that Epic is really the dominant EMR system in hospitals around the state and probably the United States at this point. And so this represents switching over to a system that actually can fill the needs of the hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Chancellor.
I'll go back to my seat now.
I guarantee you won't let me forget that. Next, and I'm sorry, is State School Board, Mr. Russ Roan. Oh, y'all don't have to leave. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Thank you. Make sure y'all can hear me. I'll go through the major changes in the Department of Education's budget based on the House recommendation.
138.1.
I'm going to start on page 11, 148.1. This is an increase. The House has increased our security grants from 115 million to about 139 million. This increase is going to allow us to, instead of 50,000 per school for school security grant reimbursements, it's going to allow 60,000 per school.
Do we have any way that y'all came up with that number? Is it just, it looks like it's a WAG or a SWAG, and I won't tell y'all what those are, but is there any reason how we come up with 50,000 or 60,000?
I think it's more like an average of what they can do with some of the services, and I can provide, I also may have the list of services that we're going to allow.
Okay.
I think those are kind of enough funding to perform these different types of
And
reimbursements.
this is no personnel, this is strictly.
No
strictly
personnel, no vehicles,
equipment.
no
type stuff.
operational expenses.
Cameras, metal detectors, that type of stuff. Okay. thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Next item is 148.2, stands within our non-QBE program. The House has recommended, the governor recommended $15 million for our parapros at $3,000 each to get certificates through the Georgia TAP program. They have reduced that funding to $5 million. My understanding is that the $15 million would cover all eligible parapros in the state. The $5 million is an estimate of how many may actually participate. So that's the reason for the reduction. The next item I'll talk about is 148.3. The governor put $25 million into our budget for districts based on third grade literacy. The House has chose to reduce this funding and instructed districts to utilize current federal funding that they have in place. 148.5 is a House add of $1.25 million for school systems to implement character education programming. Next page I'll turn to is
Elaborate on
Oh, sorry. Which number are you? See. Okay.
Would you elaborate just a little bit on that, please, sir?
It's my understanding, this is, speak more to this, but it's a 50-50 match with state and local. So any funding that we provide from as a state, the locals are required to match as well.
And we don't have all the details, but essentially, as we understand it, they're providing up to 25 schools with the opportunity to up to $100,000 to implement a character education program in their school.
Where are they at?
What?
It seems kind of nebulous to me, Mr. Chairman. You just might want to note that. Dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you reading where that is?
Okay.
All right. Next up, I'll go to page 15, 154.2. This is just a formula cleanup within our state charter school supplement of a reduction of about $12 million. Next up, I'll go to page 19, 160.1. The House has added $3,336,000. This is going to allow 8 schools for our construction industry certification program to, this is going to allow them to purchase 4 simulator chassis with control for excavator and bulldozers. They're $417,000 a piece, which is where the $3,336,000 comes from. That concludes the major changes in our budget, and be happy to answer any questions.
How successful are those now? I know they are in some schools already.
The heavy equipment program.
Yes, ma'am.
We've got 6 high schools that have the program and the CTA program that's operational. And so right now, 82 students in the programs across the state, and they're trying to expand those programs into 4 additional schools.
Okay. Senator Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question: where was that last line item about this particular program?
The CTA.
Yeah, the equipment. Yeah, where is that?
160.1 is the line.
160.
Oh, no wonder I couldn't find it. Okay.
Page 19.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Did you see?
Go ahead.
No.
Senator Walker.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, just a comment. I mean,
No, I'm fine.
$3.3 million, 6 schools, 82 students. That seems out of whack to me. I mean, wouldn't the Department of Education be better off to have a centralized, if this is valuable and important, it seems like you would make it available to all schools and have it at a location somewhere convenient to CTA instructors to bring their kids there. I mean, I just can't see that myself. Is there any consideration of that?
Well, I think that apparently we've got technical colleges. I think there were 2 that also had the simulators as well. I think in consideration of where the additional 4 may be going, that they're looking at more broadly and regional to be able to allow those opportunities to more students. But I think it's a fairly new program, and that's probably why you don't see as many numbers at this time.
Thank you.
I know these simulators have been in existence for a while. How were the previous ones purchased? Were they
State funds.
state funds? Okay. Thank you. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being with us and for your work. This is on 148.1 on page 11, the security grants. Do you know what sort of parameters are in allocating these funds out? How much bandwidth does the school system have, or a particular school, for how they use the grants? I mean, is it how tightly drawn is it, or how loosely, how permissive is it? Just give us an idea.
Absolutely. So it's pretty flexible. It's the governor proposed $50,000 per school. The House increased to $60,000 per school. Outside of mostly for facilities changes, or training for staffing and personnel are the main uses. They can't use them to purchase personnel, obviously because it's an amended budget, and not for vehicle purchases. But for outside of those restrictions, the goal is to allow districts to be, and schools to be able to utilize them for their needs. Each schools are in different places in terms of their security needs, and to be able to meet those needs for the individual schools.
So it's just an umbrella term of security, and it can take whatever it looks like locally. That's what it looks like. Those very broad parameters.
Yes, ma'am, but they will have to apply and
I think it's
disclose what their purchases are for before they get the funding.
Yeah.
And the reason for the House putting more money in, the thinking behind it, is there any explanation of why that extra money was put in?
We can reach out to them and talk to them about where that came from for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's my understanding that this will not go to each individual school. It will go to the district, because you could very well have a 2,000 student school versus a 300 student school. So it wouldn't be like $50,000
per school. It's per school.
Yeah, it's per school. So I think there's some tweaking's got to be done in that situation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, all the state funding goes to districts. It's intended for a certain amount per school in terms of their needs. But like, in the event that the school does not need, an individual school does not need all 60,000, and there's another school within the district that has higher needs, then districts are able to make those adjustments if necessary.
That's what I would thought. Senator Dixon.
Yeah, just wanted to ask about 148.2.
Mm-hmm. Georgia Tech.
With the House decreasing that by 10 million, is that something y'all requested, or was that something that they took upon themselves, reducing that money?
It was the House put that in. We didn't request that.
You didn't ask for a cut, huh?
No, ma'am.
Imagine that.
Do you recall what their justification was?
Yeah, I believe the 15 million allows all eligible parapros. I believe they were looking at what their estimate was in the second half during the amended budget, how much the need would be, how much they would actually take, how many parapros would actually take the class.
Thank you.
Sir, Parent.
Yes, following up on my earlier question, do you have information from your side on why dual enrollment numbers were lower than projected, or were they falling, or just lower than projected?
Not the specifics. We can get that for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here. Appreciate it. Greg, you ready? You ready? You ready? Like you
ready to answer her question.
All right, I was gonna praise the
When you get down to the lick log, you get a little clarity.
You were sitting there like you were ready, like on the starting blocks or something, you know?
Yeah. I might have drank an energy drink before. I'm just kidding. I did not.
Commissioner Greg Dozier, 340.1 is the line number.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and committee, thank you for this opportunity. I'll run through these items. I do have a little bit of answer for the dual enrollment, and also a little bit of good news on dual enrollment as well. The first item, as you mentioned, on my documents, page 53, I'm not sure if that correlates, but as you said, is 340.1. That falls in the quick start part of TCSG's budget. One of the things I always try to share is we're so proud to be the #1 place to do business in the state 9 years running. We've said that over and over again, which is something we should say. My Quick Start team is extremely proud in that same study to be 13 years in a row the #1 workforce development unit in the nation. And so I believe Quick Start is one of those reasons Georgia has really done well as we brought businesses here, and you see that in this budget recommendation by the governor and one change by the House. It comes to the 2 electric vehicle facilities. As you know, we have one in Newton County, Rivian, and one in Bryan County. Hyundai coming last year, this body and the governor funded $6.2 million for the design of one facility. You'll see 340.1 is the design monies for the second facility of $6.25 million. Item 340.2, which is the next item on that sheet, is the actual construction monies for those 2 facilities. You'll notice that the governor recommended $112.5 million of cash for both of those facilities. The House has cut that in half to $56.25 million. You'll notice in the comments in the document that the House's intentions is to fund that second facility in the big budget when we get to it. We'll see if that's bonds or cash. I think there's still debate on that side of how they're going to fund it, but that's the intention by that reduction you see is a shifting of constructing one facility to the big budget, funding the other one in this current budget. The last item on here is the same, and it's 340.3, and that goes along with the supplier side of the Hyundai expansion in Bryan County. We have a quick start training facility that's in Pooler. This would be adding a $10.5 million expansion to that facility for that supplier base that's coming related to the Hyundai facilities. If you would flip a couple of pages to page 55 in my document, and you'll see under the technical education budget under TCSG, and that's 341.1, that'll be the next change that you see related to the House's changes, and that is a reduction based on start dates of the actual positions related to the Dual Achieve program. If you recall, last year we were authorized to have a 5-pilot high school program at TCSG. Very proud of that. We've launched all 5 of those. We actually, when I presented to the joint appropriations, we had one graduate, Mr. Amari Robertson, down at Central Technical College, and very, very proud that Dr. Ivan Allen not only graduated him, but also hired him. So he's actually an employee for the state now and doing well. And that's the success story we're so proud of. This reduction is based on that as we did the Cogni accreditation, we got these rolling. There was just a delay in the hiring. And so this $2.1 million is just a reflection of the actual date that we hired the staff related to that line item. Last year, you guys and the governor gave us $4.7 million to fund that. And obviously this year, we're only projected to use the $2.7 million. So that's this reduction. The next item is 341.2. You may remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we lost one of our pillar of presidents, Dr. Mark Ivester, up at North Georgia Tech. He was one of the early folks that were impacted by COVID and died early on in that pandemic. There was a facility on his campus that needed renovated. The governor and you guys supported renovating that facility. As we started looking at it and having the architects come in, we found out that the structure was not sound, meaning that it had an underground pool that was built there years ago. That underground pool meant the structure just could not survive a renovation. The cost went up because it went from a renovation to a new construction. We could not use our renovation money for construction. So this is authorizing language for us to use some of our MR&R monies in the amount of $4 million toward that project for new construction. So this is just giving us that authorization to use our existing money instead of for renovation for new construction. Mr. Chairman, those are the two items. I would like to real quickly just thank you guys last year. I know today's Law Enforcement Day here at the Capitol. And one thing that you guys did that was so important last year along with the governor is you supported an 18th career path, high demand career path, which meant the Hope Career Grant covered that tuition. That path was criminal justice and our law enforcement academies. You may or may not realize, but we have 5 police academies inside of our technical college system. With that change, we had a 33% increase in enrollment, and we're really having a lot of interest in our law enforcement academies. So that's making a difference in workforce. Thank you for that, and that's a difference maker.
And where are those at?
I'll have to get you that list, sir. I can tell you Georgia Piedmont has one, South Georgia has one, but let me get off all of those for you. And then if I could real quickly address dual enrollment question, as you can imagine early on in the pandemic, our high school systems, our K-12 systems went virtual. Through that virtual transition, dual enrollment, the guidance counselors enroll folks into dual enrollments, how that process goes. And as we went virtual, we saw a decline in that enrollment. And that's not a knock, that's just a reality of how people were adjusting and moving in that pandemic early on. But to give you the hope is that we've seen that rebound this year. And so where in TCSG, we're the primary provider of dual enrollment. Our USG partners do a great job, and so do our private institutes. But when you look at sheer volume, we have the brunt of that. To give you an idea, post-pandemic, and these are round numbers, I can get you the exact, I didn't bring them with me. We were around 34,000 students. We're back last year around 30,000. This year, I think we're going to actually be above that 34,000. We're trending above where we were before pandemic. I'll have to get those, though, as the year ends. But we have made a full rebound, is my belief, in dual enrollment. It was purely just an impact on those counselors registering folks to come into the system. So very, very excited about that. While the chairman's speaking, I will just add one more positive, and that is, as we look at our enrollment the last 2 years, I mentioned this in the joint appropriation, but we were down 10% that first year of the pandemic. What you'll see in the big budget is we're down 3.5% in credit enrollment last year. This year we're trending up, so we're looking at a 2% incline this year, so we're seeing a full rebound there. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody else?
Sure.
Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Commissioner. This is digging down a bit, but you gather requests from the different schools in your system for funding requests, and then from that you extract down and you submit a shorter list.
Yes, ma'am.
To the governor, and then we hope, all of us with the technical school in our backyard, hope against hope that our Atlanta Technical College will be on that list. So how much winnowing down have you done, and what this is numeric numbers, you know, how many you considered, how many you submitted to the governor, how many came out in the governor's budget, and then where are we with the...
Yeah. Great question. And just a recap of that, talking about our capital bond project list that you guys may or may not have been familiar with the process Ms. Orrick was talking about. But each of our colleges submit their number one priority to our system office. We present those number one priorities after they've been reviewed, obviously, by myself and the staff, to our state board. We ask our state board to review them at that point. Once the state board is comfortable with them, the state board actually takes a vote of support of all of those number one projects at each of our 22 colleges. Once that is done, we await for the budget instructions from the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. The last few years, those numbers have been fairly consistent on planning numbers. A little slight difference, I'll explain that. The last few years, we've been allowed $100 million in planning dollars to submit. What the example is, this year we all agencies got directions to submit a flat budget on operations, but then we get a separate direction on the bond package and what we can do. That $100 million, because of a couple of years ago, the governor and the General Assembly cash funded our MR&R and our obsolete equipment. That was about $30 million that was cash funded. So our planning number is reduced, but only because that's now cash funded in the budget. So our planning number this year was $70 million. When you look at that planning number of $70 million, we still have to submit some MR&R and equipment in there, and that's always our number one priorities for the system because we want to upkeep our current facilities. Right. Our second priority is anything that you guys have funded in construction, the final cost. We typically fund things in design 1 year, construction the second year, and then furniture and fixtures and equipment in the final year. There's a 3-year funding process. So behind those two, we will do any of the projects that were funded the prior year, the next phase. So this year we had 4 projects that were in the final stage, that FF&E, and it was a facility in Albany, Central, North Georgia Tech, and Southern Region, thank you, the biggest project that was funded, Southern Regional. After that, then we look and say what is left and how do we prioritize across the system. And so we submitted a number of projects. I can't go through all of those. But typically it's design monies or if it's a total construction. In the governor's budget recommendation this year, we received 1 new project, and it was a project at Geechee Tech, and it's a robotics facility that has a lot of local support. And that project is obviously going to be able to assist with the Hyundai suppliers and everything else that's coming. But it was also a total funded project, which made it a little unique. Instead of going through the 3 phases, the locals had already provided the funding for design. And so it was able for, I believe it's $19 million. I don't have that number in front of me. Chairman may remember.
He's shaking his head, yes.
So $19 million was fully funded for a full construction of that project. I believe we will have some FF&E next year. So there will be a next stage of that, but as far as design and construction, that's a one-time funding for that. And so that's the one project that is funded this year in the bond package. Obviously, we look to see how the process goes this year. We've always been very blessed by this body that some designing and planning of other facilities end up in the budget, and that's always a big thank and much supported. Appreciate that.
And if just one short final question, what's your assessment of how the commercial driver's license, the investment in some of your schools, Yes. Just a big workforce shortage, and we were trying to fill it.
Yeah, just a great investment. Just a reminder, we were blessed by some state dollars. We were also blessed by the governor providing us over $8 million in one-time money to do the physical expansion across our colleges for CDL. We still focus in on CDL operating costs. That's something that we always are a little bit concerned about. But when you look at the sheer volume, I believe we're up, and don't quote me, but I think it's 33%. And I'm reaching out there at air. I believe we're up 33% in CDL this year, but I may be misspeaking. If I am, I apologize.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
It's been our pleasure to listen to y'all. It's been very informative, very appreciative. And for those of y'all that are still here, we do take notes and take names. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
God bless
Thank you,
y'all.
committee.
Y'all have a great day.